The beginning of an end to the government shutdown is in sight. I'm here outside the White House as House lawmakers are braving travel delays and trying to get back to D.C. ASAP. The spending bill still needs their approval after the Senate voted in favor.
The bill as amended is passed.
That could bring relief for federal workers who have missed paychecks and couldn't come soon enough for nearly 42 million SNAP recipients as a dizzying legal battle over the federal food benefits continues to play out.
This is one of the most important videos I've made because what happened last night deserves attention. After 45 days of shutdown chaos, the billionaires got their tax breaks, the corporations got deregulated, and the rest of us got higher premiums and empty promises. No ACA extension, no protections, no relief, just a bill stuffed with giveaways for the same people who caused the crisis.
If you ever needed more evidence that the Democratic leadership is controlled opposition, this is it. These 8 senators, plus Chuck Schumer, their fucking ringleader, just soft launched their own retirement because they will never win any election ever again after this. This shutdown has been a political catastrophe for the Republicans because everybody knows they're in the wrong here. The Republicans are the ones fighting to not feed people through SNAP. The Republicans are the ones canceling flights during the busiest travel season of the entire year. The Republicans are the ones losing elections across the entire country, including Bible Belt, Mississippi.
This is huge news. It's all but over. And Schumer lost. The Democrats caved. They were holding out for things that made no sense in a continuing resolution. So 8 Democrats crossed the aisle and voted with the Republicans and brought the CR to cloture. What that means is they got 60 votes in the Senate. Now the House has to look at what the Senate said yes to. They have to agree to it, and then it goes to the president, and it'll be signed. It could be as early as tomorrow. Some say it could be Wednesday. But here are the Democrats that all switched sides, and it makes sense. They should have from the very beginning. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that Chuck Schumer didn't give them the wink and the nod to go ahead and make this vote, but here are the ones that did it. Angus King, independent from Maine. He's a Democrat. He caucuses with the Democrats. He's been saying yes the entire time. John Fetterman, Democrat, Pennsylvania. He's also been saying yes. Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. She's also been saying yes. The new ones are Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire. The other New Hampshire Senator, Maggie Hassan, also said yes. Jackie Rosen from New Mexico said yes. Tim Kaine, Virginia, said yes. And the number 2 Democrat in the United States Senate voted against Chuck Schumer, and that is Dick Durbin from Illinois. So now you've got 60. You needed 60, which is a supermajority, to end the filibuster, to bring it to cloture. Now you can actually bring that vote for the actual CR, then get it to the House, get it to the president. The government gets reopened. They did not get anything updated in Obamacare, no extension of the subsidies. All they really got was that some of the furloughed and fired employees will be brought back, not many, and those who were furloughed will get back pay, which they were going to anyway. What are your thoughts on this? It's a huge win for the Republicans, a huge loss for the Democrats. Was it worth 40 days and putting the country in peril? Come on!
Let's start tonight's show with the big news out of Washington on the shutdown. By the way, tonight's show will be brought to you by I Can't F***ing Believe It! I can't f***ing believe it!
Hi guys, you're welcome back to the channel. My name is Prince Ichi. Thank you for joining our conversation and supporting our content. Please guys, I want you to support my channel by subscribing. It's free and it helps us grow and bring more quality content. So guys, let's dive into the hottest topic of the day.
The beginning of an end to the government shutdown is in sight. I'm here outside the White House as House lawmakers are braving travel delays and trying to get back to D.C. ASAP. The spending bill still needs their approval after the Senate voted in favor.
The bill as amended is passed.
That could bring relief for federal workers who have missed paychecks and couldn't come soon enough for nearly 42 million SNAP recipients as a dizzying legal battle over the federal food benefits continues to play out. The Trump administration this week told the Supreme Court it would continue to fight an order from a federal judge requiring it to fully fund November food benefits. The administration has said it will only partially fund the benefits. The U.S. Department of Agriculture told states over the weekend to, quote, undo any steps they had taken to pay full amounts to recipients, or they would face penalties. But a federal judge temporarily blocked any such penalties. The pending deal would fully fund SNAP benefits through next September, and once the deal goes through, benefits should reach SNAP recipients fairly quickly. But it could take several days for air travel to return to normal. Trump is expected to sign the spending deal into law, but it does not appear to include any specific guardrails to prevent him from enacting further spending cuts.
If you ever needed more evidence that the Democratic leadership is controlled opposition, this is it. These 8 senators, plus Chuck Schumer, their fucking ringleader, just soft launched their own retirement because they will never win any election ever again after this. This shutdown has been a political catastrophe for the Republicans because everybody knows they're in the wrong here. The Republicans are the ones fighting to not feed people through SNAP. The Republicans are the ones canceling flights during the busiest travel season of the entire year. The Republicans are the ones losing elections across the entire country, including Bible Belt Mississippi. Democrats swept last week. It was working. People were switching sides. Don't stop now. Let MAGA own the consequences. But now, because these 8 traitors blinked first, the Democrats have to accept responsibility for the shutdown. They said, we actually don't want any political leverage at all. What was the point of 6 weeks of back and forth if you were just going to take the same exact deal anyway? Nothing changed. 24 million Americans rely on ACA subsidies. Without them, healthcare is completely unaffordable. And because it's open enrollment, we're already seeing people's premiums multiply by 2 to 3 times. That is hundreds, thousands of dollars more per month out of people's pockets at a time when 40% of Americans can't afford an emergency $400 expense. How many millions of people did these 8 Democrats just help the Republicans kill over the long term? From people not getting preventative care, from people not getting life-saving treatment, from people not going to the emergency room or calling an ambulance because they know they won't be able to afford it. Or how about when hospitals just start closing down altogether because they can't function without that revenue? You cannot chalk this up to incompetence, okay? Because some of these people have been in Congress for longer than I've been alive, all right? They are liabilities, plain and simple. They are counterproductive to any unified effort against fascism. And people like Ezra Klein will go and write op-eds in the New York Times talking about how we need more moderate Democrats to appeal to voters. No, we don't, because then they go and do shit like this once they're in office. So maybe it's time to listen up when young people start telling you that we want progressives that won't break line and vote with the fucking Republicans.
What actually just happened with the shutdown vote? Let's talk about it. And we're going to explain this super simple so that it makes sense. So as you've probably noticed, the government has been shut down for the last 40 plus days now because Congress could not agree on how to fund things. Not the president, Congress. They're the ones who handle the money under the Constitution. The entire fight was about one thing: whether to include a 1-year extension for the ACA Obamacare healthcare subsidies inside of the bill that actually funds the government, or to debate it on a separate bill. The Democrats said we will only open the government as long as we get to extend those subsidies for a year. Republicans said let's just reopen the government now and then debate healthcare separately. Now, if the goal was truly to help people, they could have had this fixed when Biden was the president and they had the House and the Senate. But they didn't. Instead, they just chose to put a Band-Aid on it. A Band-Aid that lasted till the end of 2025 during election season. And now they're pushing a 1-year extension that expires conveniently right before the next election. It doesn't solve the cost problem. It just puts the crisis right into the next campaign season. But I digress. And that, my friends, was the disagreement that kept everything frozen. Sunday night, the Senate finally passed a temporary funding bill, a bill that did not include the healthcare subsidies extension. What this means is the government is going to reopen temporarily. Federal workers and our military are going to get paid again. SNAP and WIC payments will continue, and hospital and federal programs will resume operations. But the healthcare debate was not solved. It was simply moved to its own bill, where everyone can argue about this out in the open without holding paychecks hostage. So this vote doesn't mean that the healthcare debate is over. It just means that we finally stopped making Americans suffer while the politicians can go and negotiate. Now, this part is important. You can support extending the subsidies. You can support changing how healthcare works. You can have either option. But the shutdown was never about caring versus not caring. This was always about where this debate should happen. Inside of a shutdown bill, which is typically seen as a pressure tactic, or inside of its own healthcare bill. The shutdown ending basically just means that now we can have a healthcare debate without hurting people in the process.
This is one of the most important videos I've made because what happened last night deserves attention. After 45 days of shutdown chaos, the billionaires got their tax breaks, the corporations got deregulated, and the rest of us got higher premiums and empty promises. No ACA extension, no protections, no relief, just a bill stuffed with giveaways for the same people who caused the crisis. And the final insult? A hidden provision slipped in at night letting members of Congress sue the government for investigating themselves over January 6th, paid for with your tax dollars. It's like a hostage video with better lighting. You drain the public, starve programs, then frame surrender as strength. It's psychological warfare. Keep people so numb and desperate that betrayal starts to feel like normal governance. They call it a compromise, but it's not compromise when one side writes the ransom note and the other signs it in exhaustion. It's not justice when power can sue accountability. And it's not stability. It's the slow theft of a country dressed up as bipartisan cooperation. They didn't reopen the government. They privatized it.
The 41-day government shutdown in the United States has finally come to an end. But the consequences of this historic impasse will be felt for weeks to come. The shutdown, which began on the 1st of October 2025, has left nearly 900,000 federal employees unlocked or working without pay, disrupted critical services, and sent shockwaves through economy. As the government reopens, many Americans are breathing a sigh of relief, but for others, the struggling continues. Federal workers who went weeks without pay are now facing the financial hardship, and some are grappling with the uncertainty of back pay. It's been a nightmare, said one of the federal workers. I had to work, take out loans just to pay my rent. The shutdown has taken a toll of economy, which estimates suggesting a 15 billion loss each week. Small businesses, tourism, and local economy have suffered significantly, and the impact will be felt for months to come. So guys, let's dive into the videos.
What the hell did Democrats just do? They were winning this shutdown. They were. And that's not a small thing. The opposition party had almost never wins a shutdown. And yet Democrats were actually winning this one. And they're winning it because Trump was acting crazy. Instead of negotiating with them over healthcare subsidies, he was demolishing the East Wing of the White House to build a ballroom. He was throwing Great Gatsby parties at Mar-a-Lago. If you looked at his poll numbers, they were going down. In the CNN poll, he was in the 30s for the first time in his second term. If you looked at the election, Democrats romped to victory. And would I say they romped to victory because of the shutdown? Probably not. But you know who thought it was part of the shutdown? Was Trump. He kept saying Democrats won in part because of the shutdown. And then over the weekend, a group of more moderate Senate Democrats, led by Angus King, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, they cut this deal. And the truth is, there's just not much in this deal. They're ending the shutdown here for very little. But the real key of all this, the place where you see Democrats kind of got nothing, was there's nothing on the healthcare subsidies that were supposedly the core of this whole fight. So what happened? Why did they fold? I think to understand what happened here, you have to know that the ACA subsidies were a kind of weird part of this whole shutdown. The energy for the shutdown did not come from healthcare subsidies. It came from the many, many congressional Democrats who feel Trump is forcing the country towards authoritarianism, who felt they could not morally keep funding a government that was being run this way. I think they were right about that. But there weren't enough of them. And so the idea of shutting down over these expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies emerged. And it was the one demand that could hold the entire Senate Democratic caucus together. But it had a couple of problems. One is that even if Democrats won on the healthcare subsidies, for many of them, it wasn't going to solve the problem they were most worried about, which was the authoritarianism. Two, you had a bunch of Senate Democrats who really didn't want to do this at all. They were just going along with their colleagues. And then three, and this was the hardest thing for Democrats to talk about, even though they talked about it internally. Of course, Democrats wanted to extend health insurance subsidies. They care about the Affordable Care Act. They passed those subsidies in the first place. But weren't they handing Donald Trump, weren't they fighting to hand Donald Trump a huge political gift? Premiums are going to more than double for millions of Americans, 20 million-ish Americans. And Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to be blamed for that. It is going to be another way in which they let prices go up. And to this strange inverted political logic, if Democrats won the fight, they would be neutralizing what might be their best issue against Republicans in 2026. If Republicans won the fight, they would be handing Democrats a cudgel to beat them with in 2026. So what happened here? Why then, having started this fight, did Democrats give it up for very little? The basic answer was Trump wasn't negotiating with them. And the Senate moderates, who never really wanted a shutdown to begin with, could not take the pain that it was causing their constituents and, in their view, the country. You had hundreds of thousands of federal workers who were furloughed or fired. Some of them were facing eviction. They were not able to pay their rent. You had hungry families that were cut off from food assistance. You now had the threat, the growing reality of flights being canceled at airports all across the country. And you had all these other things happening too. There's a lot the government does that does not make the headlines that we don't pay that much attention to, but they were seeing it. They were getting calls from their constituents. And I want to give them their due because they feel they were making the moral choice. They do not feel that holding out longer would have made Trump cave. So they looked at this and they thought, we've caused enough pain. We're not going to get what we want here. Let's get out of it. I would not, if I were in the Senate, vote for this deal. I think they're getting out of it for nothing. And I think if Donald Trump wants to cancel flights across Thanksgiving in order to refuse to lower healthcare prices for Americans, he wants to make his priority so exquisitely clear to people, why not let him do that? This is a difference, I think, between Democrats who understand that they're in an intentional fight for power right now, right? They need to win the attention wars against Trump. They need to make clear who he is to the American people. And then Senate Democrats are still treating this like it's normal, like it's just back and forth on policy, like we're just in a normal political moment. I don't think we're in a normal political moment. But what I do think is that this was a skirmish, not the war. This was about positioning for next year, not about winning policy concessions this year. And so did Democrats win the shutdown? They definitely did not win the shutdown. The shutdown is ending and they got relatively little. But in the fight for positioning in politics, which is what this really was, they ended up a bit better than they started. People know the healthcare subsidies are expiring. They know Republicans want to let the healthcare subsidies expire. If they do expire, the American people are now set up to blame Republicans for that, which is correct. It will be Republicans' fault if that happens. So did Democrats win the shutdown? No. But they didn't lose it either. They ended up a little bit better than they started. And given how badly opposition parties usually do in shutdowns, that's not nothing.
Looks like the Senate has a deal to end the shutdown. That's a fact. Democrats are upset about it. Why? Well, that's politics. That they want this to be about the ACA subsidies. That's not the big ticket issue when it comes to why the overwhelming majority of Americans are upset with health care. It's not about coverage. It's about cost. And the ACA subsidies are just a little itty bitty slice of that. But the Democrats do have high ground, but they don't have high ground on bitching about ending the shutdown. No one has ever ended a shutdown with a big policy win. Go all the way back to 1975, 1976. Okay? Reagan, couple days there, he got some. Bush, couple days, he got some. But that was about president versus Congress. In the modern era of one side against the other, no shutdown has ever won the minority side any kind of gain. Why? Because that's not what it's about. It's about advantage. Okay? And the idea that this shutdown has to end because the air traffic controllers are making it unsafe to fly, that's bullshit. Don't blame the victim. This shutdown was about arguing about healthcare. That's what it was supposed to be about at its best. But it's always been about showing which side is worse. And as long as you allow yourself to get fucked up and twisted up by the idea of one side versus the other, this is all we're going to get. You have to make a choice. Are you about advantage of one side over the other, or better for the majority of Americans? What do you care about? They're asking you to pick a boogeyman. I'm going to talk about this more tonight. What do you hate more? Big government or big business? The left is banking on big business. The right is betting on big government. That's the fight that they're picking. But that's not about you. That's about their fugazi fight for advantage of which side is worse. If you want to be about the fact that we need better in America, then you should be asking for solutions.
The shutdown was sparked by disagreement over funding for various government programs, including healthcare and immigration. While a temporary deal has been reached, the underlying issue remains unresolved, leaving many wondering what's next. As the government reopens, the federal agencies will need to play catch-up, processing backlog applications and addressing the fallout from the shutdown. But for many Americans, the real question is, will our leaders learn from this experience and work towards a more stable future? Thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video and got some insight into the unfolding drama. Don't forget to like, share with your friend, and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive content. Hit that bell icon to stay updated on the latest uploads. See you on the next one.